Islas Canarias, islands of happiness on the edge of the world. A sun-soaked paradise in the Atlantic Ocean. The past conquerors of North Africa, Portugal and Spain left an indelible culture here. Lanzarote, the fourth largest island. At the southern end of the island is Playa Blanca, once a fishing village and today a harbour. Playa Blanca has grown into a holiday centre with a promenade, a fine sandy beach and a pedestrian area. Nearby is a peninsula with superb beaches and pristine bays, the Playa de Papagayo. Rugged beauty, born of fire and water, a volcanic paradise. The route to the interior of the island travels through Geria. A volcanic eruption caused much destruction here, but the buildings were soon rebuilt, although the fields were covered with ash. Consequently, many of the inhabitants were forced to abandon farming and instead find other lines of work. Several of them worked in the Salinas de Chanubio that was located on the southwestern coast of the island. While salt, the island's white gold, was mined underground in Europe, here it was produced by the evaporation of seawater in large, shallow basins. Close by, strangely shaped cliffs plunge down into the wild waters of the Atlantic. Los Hervideros. Huge waves lash against the lava that solidified whilst flowing towards the sea. The wild coast ends in a natural bay, El Golfo, the last remnant of a volcanic crater. Half of the torn-apart caldera is covered by the Atlantic. It's like a prehistoric world. La Geria is a well-known wine-growing region. From a distance, the vineyard looks like a wide-meshed knitting pattern, with countless small semicircular walls rising from the land. Lava protects the vines. In good years, the vineyards produce up to 5 million gallons of Malvasian and Muscatel wine. On a major traffic intersection in the center of the island is the famous Monumento al Campesino. When tourism began here, Cesar Manrique dedicated it to the island's hard-working farmers. San Bartolome is situated in the geographical center of the island, a relatively unimposing place with a town hall, church and theatre. In the 18th century, both the governor and regimental commander settled here. The Museo Tanit is located within a building of that era. Next, we arrive in Puerto del Carmen on the east coast. Today, little is to be seen of the original fishing village. Now there are apartments and hotel facilities. It has over 6 kilometers of golden sand and rows of neatly arranged parasols. A little further north on the east coast is Arrecife, the capital of the island. Founded in the 15th century. In the heyday of Canary Island fishing, Arrecife was an important center of deep-sea fishing. but that eventually came to an end. On the outskirts of the city in 1730, King Carlos III had the Castillo San Jose built. The work fed hungry mouths. A little further north is a resort that boasts a great surfing beach and golf course, Costa Teguise. Its rather inhospitable lava field was successfully transformed into a holiday resort, and the original local architecture adds to its character. In the Timofaya Plains, one thing is becoming clear. We're in the land of the mountains of fire. The volcanoes here are a fascinating monument to nature's many moods. Only the bus is allowed to use the volcano route, a bizarre crater landscape that was formed by a massive natural eruption. At Lanzarote, the most powerful volcanic eruptions in the history of mankind began on the 1st of September 1730 and lasted for almost 6 years. A huge moonscape was created. On the northwest coast is the Playa de Femara, one of the longest and windiest beaches on Lanzarote, and from where the strong northwest winds blow. The scenic beauty of this area is mainly characterized by the mountain massif of Risco de Femara that drops down into the sea. To a wild beach. Returning to the center of the island, the regal charm of Teguise greets us. This historic 15th century capital was named after a royal lady. She was the beautiful daughter of the last indigenous king of Lanzarote, King Gualafra, and was married to the conqueror of the island, Knight Betancourt. Above is the Santa Barbara Fortress. An exhibition depicts the pirates who once conquered the castle. The castle attracted hostilities from its enemies. From an old quarry, Cesar Manrique also created the Jardin de Cactus, a successful combination of prickly nature and living art. Here there are more than 1,500 species of cacti from all over the world, also making it a place of both botanical and floral study. Geria is situated like an oasis within the Valley of 1,000 Palms in the highest region of the island, a conservation area. Gleaming white buildings depict the former prosperity of this place. Now less populated. The Mirador del Rio on the northern tip of Lanzarote also interested Cesar Manrique. This rage of volcanoes has become a popular holiday destination. Lanzarote, Black Pearl of the Canaries, a sparkling gem. Fuerteventura, the second largest island of the Canary archipelago. Now the extreme north of the island. Corralejo developed into a ferry port and, within a few decades, a bustling holiday resort. Once a number of fishing families and a few smugglers lived here. They transported grain and various goods to the neighboring island of Lanzarote. Today, this former fishing village has a population of more than 10,000. South, in the interior of the island, is La Oliva. On the outskirts, the Casa de los Coroneles was, up until the 19th century, the seat of the commander of the island. Close by is the striking Montaña Tindaya, the holy mountain of the ancient inhabitants of the islands. On the eastern Atlantic coast, where shepherds once grazed their goat herds, is Puerto del Rosario, present-day capital of the island. The village was founded as a port in 1797, and with increasing marine traffic and as a central gateway to the island, more and more people settled here. Since the 1980s, its historic buildings have been restored and parks and a promenade created. Along the coast to the north are several small fishing villages, such as that of Puerto Layas. Here, time seems to stand still in a very nostalgic way. Further north is a dune landscape which directly meets the sea, the Parque Natural de Corralejo. The Ecomuseo La Alcogida is a successful cultural project of the European Union whose aim is to preserve ancient civilization. Antigua is the geographical center of the island, one of its oldest settlements, founded prior to 1485. In the middle of a wide valley, both Andalusian and Norman settlers established a village here, cultivating its fertile red soil and loess, deposits of silt scattered by the wind. A magnificent mill on the northern outskirts of the village became the center of an open-air museum, surrounded by a small park with various varieties of cactus, and a granary. The Salinas del Carmen is now a salt museum. It features salt production over the centuries, how seawater was diverted into shallow pools, where it evaporated and formed solidified salt. On the east coast to the south, we reach Pozo Negro, a tiny fishing village situated in a rugged, dark bay covered with shingle. Here it's peaceful, remote, and a good place to be. Just a few kilometers inland, a field of ancient Canarian ruins appears. La Atalayita, a Stone Age village. Here, archaeologists have reconstructed buildings that date back to pre-Hispanic times. Further south and back on the coast, one of the island's fine new roads ends at Las Playitas, another fishing village now open to tourism. The bay is tranquil, and fishing boats are moored alongside a small pier that is deserted during the day. From Las Playitas, a 6-kilometer-long road leads up to Punta de la Entalada and to one of the island's 4 lighthouses. It was built at the end of the 19th century. Further south at La Lajita is an oasis park consisting of a zoo, botanical garden, and camel safari. The cacti are also an interesting feature. Morro Jable is located at the southernmost tip of the island. A successful combination of former fishing village and adjacent hotel complexes and holiday resorts. Its spacious gold-yellow sandy beaches are easily accessible. and there are fine views of the Atlantic Ocean. Inland is the Jandia Nature Park. A rocky volcanic landscape stretches to its northern cliffs, and a single-track road leads up to a vantage point on the other side of the island. It's a fascinating, uninhabited and deserted landscape with volcanic cones and black lava fields. Back in Jandia, the vast desert-like dune landscape of El Jable indicates that North Africa and its Moroccan coastline is not far away. Meanwhile, the shifting sand dunes extend and the sand curls and folds in constant motion. A well-built road leads through central, mountainous country. In a hollow between the protective mountains is Pajara. At the end of the 16th century, its fertile soil brought prosperity due to the cultivation of tomatoes and potatoes. A short detour leads down to the sea, to Ai. It is believed that conquerors Gadifa de la Salle and Jean de Bethencourt landed here for the first time in 1402. From the northern edge of the bay, there is an adventurous route along the steep coast of Caleta Negra. The view of the cliffs is well worth the effort. And eroded rock shells hang dramatically above the wild foam of the coast. Again inland is Vega de Ria Palmas, a beautiful palm oasis with white and brown buildings between huge, wild palms. Close by is Betancuria, a splendid location. The town owes its name to the Norman Jean de Bethencourt, who conquered the island for the Castilian crown. It was situated in the mountains away from the coast and was thus safe from pirate attack. Statues of the island's indigenous people survey their paradise on the edge of the world. From the Mirador de Moro, the view of each side of the barren north of the island is overwhelming. GRAN CANARIA, third largest of the 7 Canary Islands. Las Palmas is the capital of the island and metropolis of the Canary archipelago. Colourful and multicultural with a great history. The palm-lined Plaza Santa Ana is the centre of Vegueta, in which both spiritual and temporal power have existed since the conquistadors arrived here. This splendid and imposing brownstone building, whose twin towers dominate the old town, has for centuries been the largest church in the Canary Islands, Santa Ana Cathedral. In 1492, on his first journey to the New World, Christopher Columbus landed in Las Palmas and spent a night in the residence of the Spanish military governor. It was subsequently named after the famous explorer, the Casa de Callón. Two buildings were combined as one. the late Gothic palace of the island's governor, together with a smaller private palace. The Mercado de Vegueta is the city's oldest market hall and also the beating heart of this district. A colourful place. With fresh Atlantic fish, fruit and vegetables. The Parque San Telmo is one of the many green spaces and begins at the end of the pedestrian area. Adorned with glazed tiles, the Art Nouveau Pavilion is now a cafe in which customers sit beneath tall palm trees and enjoy the atmosphere of the park. The triangular Plaza Carrasco in the southwest of the district was named after the famous poet Bartolomé Carrasco de Figueroa. His monument is located outside one of the city's oldest theatres. This prestigious district is Ciudad Jardín. This garden city became an exclusive residential area between the old town and the harbour, with the spacious Parque de Ramas, which was named after the last Canarian sovereign. On the edge of the park is the Pueblo Canario, a replica of a Canarian village, inspired by the watercolours of artist Nestor. Here there's the traditional song and dance of the islands, with colourful costumes and nostalgic music. Especially popular are stirring performances of Canarian folk dance and music. The Pueblo Canario was created to conserve both the culture and architecture of the Canary Isles. The women wear white tops and long flowing skirts, while the men wear embroidered jackets, short skirts and white leggings. Celebrations were held at every opportunity. Just off the Parque de Ramas is the Las Palmas Marina, which grows bigger each year and where sailing regattas take place in the summer. Santa Catalina is the harbour district, and the Parque Santa Catalina is the lively centre of the town. Here, life takes place out in the open, while the elderly meet for a chat. Puerto de la Luz is one of the largest ports in Spain. Oil and fish are loaded here, and it's a constantly expanding container port. It could be described as an Atlantic petrol station, because up to 100,000 ships refuel here with more than 3 million tons of fuel every year. The Playa de las Canteras is one of the most beautiful beaches in the world, and comparable with Rio's Copacabana. A mile-long promenade with a white, sandy, palm-lined beach, with fine sea views and an array of modern hotels. Las Palmas is a metropolis and a boomtown, a retreat of both city dwellers and tourists. The famous stonemasons of Gran Canaria built their cathedral from the blue-black basalt rock of Arucas and dedicated it to John the Baptist. Many of the historic buildings in this, the third largest city on the island, have been well conserved. Arucas is known for its rum distillery that originated in 1884. It contained the Canary Islands' first large steam-powered sugar factory. Teror is a wonderful place. Its impressive basilica, which was built more than 200 years ago, is the religious centre of the island. The city features old, whitewashed townhouses with traditional wooden balconies. Vega de San Mateo is a sleepy mountain town, and the large Mercado Agricola is one of the region's main attractions and features products from the surrounding area. Close to Tafira, Swedish botanist Erich Sventinius laid the foundations of the 27-hectare GRAN CANARIA. For garden enthusiasts, a green paradise. Nearby is the island's volcanic past, the 200-meter-deep Caldera de Bandama. Just 15 kilometers south of Las Palmas is Teide, the island's second-largest city with its truly beautiful and picturesque old town. The winding, narrow streets of the San Francisco district, with its white facades and pretty wooden balconies, create a special atmosphere. Further south, close to the east coast in Ingenio, is the Museum of Stone and Canary Crafts, with an adjoining embroidery school. Nearby Aguinas was the bishop's seat up until the 19th century. Its cobbled streets are decorated with bronze figures that depict the city's history. In the extreme south of the island are the Dunas de Maspalomas, a gigantic dune area that stretches for several miles with up to 30-meter-high dunes and the freshwater La Chaga oasis. Traveling north, we visit the Palmitos Park, a subtropical oasis with 1,000 palm trees. And in the large Aqua Show Theatre, dolphins show off their talents. Framed by palm trees, Fatiga is one of the island's many picturesque mountain villages. Narrow streets and splendid gardens feature in this oasis village. The narrow road spirals further north and up into the mountain region in the middle of the island. With good views of the stunning volcanic landscape that originated millions of years ago as a stratovolcano. The steep and jutting Roca Nublo is a most striking volcano, and at 1,813 meters above sea level, the second highest point on the island. A mountain road continues further north, passing a mountainous landscape that has been designated as a biosphere reserve. Up to a mountain ridge, Cruz De Tenerife has always been a central crossing point for many roads and pathways, and there's been a stone cross here for as long as anyone can remember. Artinara is the most elevated village on the island, with a church in its center. Many people still live in cave houses, and the cave chapel of a hermit is the main landmark. The 7-meter-long Agaita Valley lies well protected in the ancient volcanic landscape, a fertile Garden of Eden. Gyaldar was the island's first capital and characterizes the proud heritage of the Guanches. The most important archaeological site on the Canaries is Cueva Pintada, discovered in 1873, an archaeological gem with reconstructed buildings and a museum. Close by is the cave complex of Genobio de Valeron, 298 caves that lie beneath a natural basalt archway. The indigenous people of the Canaries lived at various levels in these mysterious caves, located in the soft, volcanic, tough rock. Our route now leads from the mountains to the west coast, further south, with steep slopes along the way. This is the island's Wild West, with a spectacular coastline, barren hinterland, and secluded coves. Suddenly, Puerto de la Aldea, a fishing village with a small harbour and promenade, as well as a stony beach. At harvest time, the produce of the nearby tomato city of San Nicola is shipped abroad. A little further inland, there's another natural attraction. The Cacto Aldea, or Cactus Village. 100,000 cacti and other plants are displayed here. One of the island's most beautiful and exciting roads travels through the Barranquillo de la Aldea, an amazing canyon. The vegetation becomes sparse, and only rush bushes appear to grow here. Next, we travel south, down towards the coast and pass through the small mountain village of Mogian in the shadow of Geria, a place infrequently visited by tourists. A brief stop in Molino de Viento recalls the recent past with a restored windmill that gave its name to this place. Next, Puerto de Mogian and the hot south. This former fishing village is now a tourist resort with a sandy beach. Around the harbour, sun worshippers strolled across numerous small bridges that cross the village's canals, so giving it the nickname Little Venice. From the new marina, boat trips are available that travel along the coast to the nearby Puerto Rico. A dreamy tourist city, which in addition to beautiful scenery and a colonial past, has helped make Gran Canaria a summer paradise. Tenerife, the island of eternal spring. Santa Cruz De Tenerife, northeast of the island, is its capital, port and commercial metropolis. Classical buildings and monuments indicate its colourful past. The Museo Arqueológico is well worth a visit. In addition to the Canaries' flora and fauna, the abundant remains of an extinct culture is particularly interesting. The island's indigenous people, the Guanches, well-preserved mummies which have been found in numerous caves, document the mummification ritual. Only in ancient Egyptian and Incan cultures were the dead dealt with in this elaborate way. The oldest church in the historic centre is the Iglesia de Nuestra Señora de la Concepción. The colonial building exists due to the Castilian conquistador Alonso Fernández de Lugo. 5 years after the conquest of Tenerife by Castile in 1496, de Lugo had the castle built. Close to the city to the north is the Playa de las Terrasitas, a sandy beach that shines out in the warm sun. Surprising to say, but in 1970, large amounts of sand were transported here by ship from the Sahara. Close to the island's interior is San Cristobal de la Laguna, also known as La Laguna. In 1497, de Lugo founded his first capital here, which was situated on a lagoon. The facades of noble buildings and palaces that date back to the 17th and 18th centuries look as though they were built only yesterday. Plus, there's the tiny Teatro Real with its classical facade. Nearby, the city's main landmark, a striking church tower. It belongs to the island's oldest church, of which the interior is of Mudéjar design. The observation platform on the bell tower provides a panoramic view across the city. Administratively, politically and militarily, La Laguna was for centuries the centre of life here and the cultural heart of the Canary archipelago. Puerto de la Cruz is located on the splendid north coast and a city in which both old and new combine. The fishing and harbour district was founded around 500 years ago. It was not until the end of the 19th century that tourism began to develop here. Built in 1712, the renowned Marquesa Hotel is located in the city centre. In 1799, Alexander von Humboldt gave it the highest praise. The city relies on tourism. With its neoclassical bell tower, the Francia de la Peña church dominates. Its interior contains a richly decorated Baroque altar. Close by is Loro Parque, Spain's most visited zoo, with many unique attractions and the most spectacular orca show in Europe. Tourists come to Ico de los Vinos mainly due to a natural wonder, the millennial dragon tree, or Drago Millenario. The pretty old town has a unique atmosphere with steep cobbled streets and well-preserved historic buildings. The city of Garaccio and convent of San Francisco were founded by Genoese banker Cristobal de Ponte, following the conquest of the island. Today there's no sign of the devastating event that led to the abrupt decline of what was once a prosperous city. The disaster of 1706. The eruption of the Volcán de Negro. La Orotava, with its beautiful Baroque church, is located on a mountainside above Puerto de la Cruz. A large freestanding dome makes the massive central nave of the church appear to be very tall. It has a splendid interior. Narrow cobbled streets and fine buildings cling to the slopes. One of the buildings features the original living quarters with various household items and furniture. This historic city also has a small botanical garden with subtropical plants from around the world. The El Teide National Park. During the journey up the Teide, it becomes clear that it grew larger with each eruption. A multi-layered stratovolcano. By cable car, 1,200 meters is overcome in 8 minutes. Far better than several hours of strenuous walking. The panorama at 3,555 meters above sea level is overwhelming, and the crater walls of the huge caldera are amazingly dramatic. The crystal clear view is due to the purity of the air and the arid climate. The Teide divides the island into two climatic zones, cool and moist, sunny and warm. While descending, it is explained that the cable car service is sometimes interrupted by violent storms. The Barranco del Infierno is located in the south of the island. A canyon-like gorge whose diverse vegetation zones are particularly interesting to those interested in botany. It's been named Hell's Ravine, although the water-storing desert plants that cover its slopes make it look far from devilish. Teide is located at the exit of the gorge and in the pre-Hispanic period was the royal residence of the Guanche king, subsequently owned by the Ponte family. They built the oldest church in the south of the island. In 1555, feudal Lord Ponte was granted the right to build a Casa Fuerte, a small fortress to protect against pirate attack. Tenerife is an island where remarkable weather, volcanoes and deep blue sea determine everyday life. La Palma, the wild beauty of the Canary Islands. Santa Cruz, the island's capital, is situated on the east coast with a narrow beach and framing the Plaza de España are townhouses, the town hall, a statue of priest Manuel Diaz, and a church. The Iglesia del Salvador consists of 3 naves with richly structured ceilings in Mudéjar style, supported by Gothic stone columns. The city's coat of arms adorns the adjacent city hall, one of the most beautiful Renaissance buildings in the archipelago. The Senate Hall on the upper floor contains a magnificent ceiling of tier. Around the wooden stairway, there are huge expressionist murals. Daily life mainly takes place within 2 streets that run parallel to the coast. One is quite narrow, with stately town buildings and well-conserved noble palaces. The other is located on the coast. In addition to new buildings, there are a number of traditional ones with skillfully crafted wooden balconies, properties once owned by Portuguese immigrants. Where a river meets the Atlantic, the Santa Maria was reconstructed at the Plaza de la Alameda. On the opposite side of the river is the Castillo de la Virgin, with bright white walls across above the door and numerous ornate guns. San Andres was once one of the most important of the Canary trading ports and shipped mainly to Flanders and Latin America. For centuries, it's been a dreamy, timeless place. Not far from San Andres is a large contiguous forest of laurel, the Bosque de los Tilos. Pathways run along the rock face and through man-made tunnels in the forest, a UNESCO site since 1983. A towering dragon tree marks the Mirador La Tosca on the northern coast. In sunlight, this wild, romantic landscape is particularly attractive with its lush splendor and solitude. A picture book of nature. Almost at the extreme northern tip of the island, and picturesquely framed by terraced fields, high above the sea is the village of El Tablado. Its Its narrow fields are still tilled, and both orange and dragon trees adorn the slopes in exotic style. A captivating scene. In Las Tricias on the harsh northwest coast is a village whose buildings are scattered on the hills, scenically nestling between orchards and almond groves. Once grain was grown here extensively, but now many of the fields lie infertile. Winding mountain road leads to the island's highest point, over 34 kilometers and 433 bends. On the external slopes of this crater are several observatories which form part of the Observatorio Astrofisico, a project of various European countries. We arrive at the island's highest peak, the Roque de los Muchachos, at an altitude of 2,426 meters above sea level. A 14-kilometer-long range of volcanoes frames the center of the island. The Caldera de Tabriante, the largest volcanic crater in the world. Los Llanos de Aradane, at the southern foot of the caldera, is also known as the capital of the secret island. It's a rapidly expanding city. The central Plaza de España is framed by the city hall and a church. There are also modern buildings, hotels, and a pedestrian area with luxury boutiques and dining establishments. Where the Gorge of Fears opens towards the sea is Puerto Tazacorte, with a dark-coloured beach, harbour and colourful waterfront. At the exit of the fertile Aradane Valley is Tazacorte. The colourful painted buildings and winding streets of the old town exude southern flair, the legacy of the great period of the sugar barons and trading dynasties. South of the west coast is the beautiful Puerto Naos, once a small fishing village that has now become the island's largest tourist centre. This promenade with much greenery between chic hotels and apartments is ideal for a stroll. Fuencaliente is the most southerly section of the island. Tourism has not yet conquered this region, but growing numbers of tourists come to explore the volcanic landscape from here. Paths lead to the edge of the caldera of the San Antonio volcano. The volcano buried its sacred source when it last erupted in 1677, to which Fuencaliente owes its name. Next, the east coast. The Matzo Farmers Market is very popular. Built in 1512, the Iglesia de San Blas is not only one of the oldest, but also one of the most beautiful churches on the island. And Casa Roya fascinates. Further north on the east coast towards Santa Cruz is Los Concayos, the largest holiday center on the island, built on the narrow coastal strip of an abandoned salt works. In former times, much pottery was produced on the island, but today there's only one workshop, El Molino. A couple make pottery here, dark bowls of old Canarian artwork. The last destination is Breña Alta. In the Tobacco Museum, the history harvesting and manufacture of cigars is documented. The legend of cigars from La Palma once traveled around the world. Here there's equipment for the production of puros, the island's manually twisted cigars. Picturesque dream islands with many faces, pearls in the Atlantic, subtropical, sun-filled islands. This archipelago that lies off the African coast allures with its wealth of fascinating nature. Islas Canarias, the islands of eternal spring.